Welcome back to the Middle of Culture. I'm one of your hosts, Peter Jones.
And I am your other host, Eden.
So, Eden, how you been doing?
I'm dead inside.
I'm sorry to hear that, but I sympathize.
Cassian Andor episode 6 just killed me.
Oh, don't tell me anything more about it because I still have not watched it. Any episodes of it because
oh my God.
I got too much else going on.
I'm dead. I'm dead inside. The show killed me last night.
Okay, well, I will remember
and
that.
I saved it for myself. I saved it for myself as a little treat after I watched our movie. I got home from work yesterday and my wife was like, "What do you got to do tonight?" And I was like, well, I gotta watch the Wolverine, but I want to watch episode 6 of Andor. So I can't decide if I should watch the Wolverine and then save Andor as like a little treat for myself. And she was like, you do that. Don't do the other thing you're thinking about, which is watch Andor first and then try to watch the Wolverine.
Smart call.
And she was right.
Smart call.
She was right. Yeah, I can't wait for you to watch Andor. When you do, we will have a very fat spoiler cast in this feed, listeners. Where we can talk about things like the way that capitalism kills ideology.
Well, the good news is...
which is the only spoiler I will give for episode 6.
Excellent. The good news is that She-Hulk is almost done. I have not had time to watch the finale that came out today.
Oh,
I
watched it. It was pretty okay.
I'm looking forward to it. I really have enjoyed that show. I don't think that it has taken... a lot of the other Marvel TV shows for me have had at least one or two episodes where I felt like there was a fairly notable dip in the quality. I think the only one that really didn't feel that way for me, honestly, was Hawkeye, which is why, while not maybe the best, it's still my very favorite. I don't know how it'll stack up to She-Hulk because I've really enjoyed it, and I have enjoyed that it has felt... To me, it has kind of felt like as the show has gone on, it continues to sort of get its stride. I'm not feeling like it's slipping up, at least not up until, episode 8, which is the one I watched last week. So we'll see. But
sure.
As soon as I get that done.
Well, I'm sure that in our next episode... Well, in our next episode, we'll have to do a short spoiler session on She-Hulk after you've seen the season finale.
Yes.
Because it does some very interesting things. It didn't push as hard as I maybe would have wished that it would, but it did push in some very interesting ways on what I would have expected from a Marvel show's last episode.
Nice.
So,
well, I'm looking forward to watching it. I don't know if I'll get around to. I might get around to it tonight after we're done recording. Most likely not, just because I'm such a tired old man. But hey, that's okay. And this is the thing, I still haven't even had time to watch the most recent episode of The Rings of Power, which... For people who are listening, just be aware that I think hopefully the final episode airs tomorrow. So I'm hoping that within the next week or two, there will be a bonus episode with myself and Eden and my youngest sister, Vanessa, who will be joining me as she is a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and in a family Discord that we have set up, Vanessa and I have been gushing between the two of us about the Rings of Power, and I kind of just said to her, I said, "Hey, do you want to do an episode and we can just gush about it?" And she said yes. So we'll have a bonus episode about the Rings of Power coming out in the next couple of weeks as well. So some good stuff coming, I think.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything other than Andor and She-Hulk that you've been into lately? Any other books, comics, music, games, anything like that?
Listening to a lot of music lately. The newest album by a certain vaporwave artist that I really like came out. It is an album entitled, I have to pull it up. It's an album entitled Body Double by the artist 18 Karat Affair. And it is quintessential vaporware. I don't know if you're into what vaporware at all.
No, not at all. When you say the words vaporware to me, my brain automatically goes to software that has been reported to be coming out that has not yet come out.
Yeah. Vaporwave. I misspoke.
Oh,
vaporware is what it's named after. Vaporwave.
No, I'm also not familiar with vaporwave.
Vaporwave is like, what if What if the 1980s was just music, but like not the music of the 1980s as much as just the 1980s was just music.
All right.
And it's really weird. It uses a lot of sampling. It uses a lot of it. It kind of feels like and this album specifically, Body Double, is really interesting because most of the songs are less than a minute long. Okay. It's a 50-minute album and it's only 43 minutes long. So most of the songs are very, very short. And then between each song is the of a channel being changed on an old-timey TV.
That's kind of a cool idea.
So it is as though you are just flipping the channels every 30 seconds to a minute, and are presented with another like tiny little sliver of 1986. And I just think it's a charming little album. It's very weird. And vaporwave as a genre is extremely weird like that. Another really good example of vaporwave that's more 90s than 80s is the website Poolside FM. Are you familiar with the website Poolside FM at all?
I have heard of it, but I have never been there.
Well, it's a pretend OS. So you go and it boots up a pretend OS, and then there is a pretend OS in your browser window that has a radio station that plays like weird vaporwave music, has a video player that plays weird commercials from the early 90s, and other just weird like detritus of a Windows 3.1 looking and acting OS. So that sort of stuff is the sort of stuff you get with vaporwave. So I've been listening to a lot of that lately. It's very weird and very fun.
Nice. Excellent.
How about yourself?
Other than kind of trying to stay on top of the usual shows that my son and I are watching, She-Hulk, The Great British Bake Off, and Lego Masters, which a new season has started, I've been continuing to chip away at the Wheel of Time. I'm a little over halfway through book 4. Hopefully I'll finish that up in the next week or so and move on to book 5. Haven't really been playing anything. Sorry, what was that?
What is Lego Masters? I've never heard of this.
Lego Masters is a silly Fox show that ends up showing up on Hulu the day after it goes. And it starts out and there's 12 teams of 2 people who are maybe their family, their friends, they've met online and they're big Lego fans. They build Lego, they do that. And you get these teams together and each week there's a theme and they generally have between about 12 to 15 hours. And just millions of Lego bricks, and they have to build a thing. So the first episode that we watched was spaceships. They had to build these spaceships that kind of told a story and then had to attach to this massive Lego space station from this single point of attachment that was a cluster of about, like 5x5 Lego bricks they had to attach their spaceship to, and it had to stay there and be supported. Last week, the one we watched, it was a Jurassic World themed one where they had to create Lego scenes with dinosaurs and then had special effects like sparks or gunpowder trails or explosions or things like that they kind of built into the scene. It's fun. It's, low stakes. If you kind of stop paying attention for a few minutes, you haven't missed anything kind of TV, and it's just fun. Gareth and I really enjoy watching what these folks have come up with, just out of their imaginations and just about every type of Lego brick that you could imagine. And it is impressive what people come up with. And I look at that and say, wow, that is a particular skill set that I do not have. So it's fun.
Yeah.
It's
I think we've talked about Legos before, how you and I are both like, Legos are fun when what I do is I take the set and I follow the instructions in the booklet.
Yes. Very satisfying to do that and watch come together.
I don't got the skills to, I have imagination in other areas of my life. I don't have it for put these blocks together into something that has not been done before, and it was not presented to me as the exact plan to follow.
Yep. I am very much the same.
This is why I like building Gundam models, because there's only one way to do that. And that's the only right way to do it.
There you go. No, other than that, a little bit of music. I've been struggling a little bit getting into music as well lately, but a couple of things worth mentioning. The new Lamb of God album, Omens, dropped. I'm a sucker for Lamb of God. Their particular brand of just aggressive, perhaps silly, over-aggressive type of metal, it just tickles my fancy sometimes, and it gives me just the kick to the nuts that I just need. And so, I've been enjoying that album a little bit. I've been getting into the new Queensryche album, and Queensryche is one of those bands that I have a very long history with, having really fallen in love with them back in the kind of, I think it was just a little bit before Empire came out in 1990, which was the album that kind of made them a household name. I got into them a little bit before then and really loved their earlier albums, The Warning, Rage for Order, and I would still contest that Operation Mindcrime is the best concept album, at least the best rock/metal concept album that has ever been recorded. And
that is
so.
That's a big claim.
I've gone back and listened to it again, and the reason that I give it such high praise is, number one, it does tell a cohesive story, and it's coherent. You listen to the album start to finish, and you can understand what's happening without even having to dig out a little booklet and read the lyrics and everything. So they did a fantastic job of presenting the story that they're trying to tell. But most importantly, with the exception of maybe a few little interstitial bits here and there, all of the actual songs completely stand up as independent songs. They are good, and sometimes great songs. I mean, The Eyes of a Stranger, just is one of, I think, the greatest rock/metal songs ever written. And so I've been getting back into a little bit older Queensryche. In fact, I was listening to Promised Land before we started recording and was reminded that was a really fascinating, really interesting album for Queensryche to put out following the astounding wide commercial success that was Empire. And that Promised Land is a fascinating album that I'm going to be listening to more over the next couple of days at the very least. So, getting some older music via some newer music that has come out.
I think Promised Land was the first Queensryche album I ever owned. So I don't know if this happens for you, but for me, even if I can later on say that objectively other albums by a group are better, there's always something special about the first album of theirs that I ever listened to.
Yes.
And so Promised Land still has a lot of that. I haven't listened to it in years, but I still feel a lot of affection towards that specific album because it was that first Queensryche album that I had ever really gotten into.
It was really interesting. We were driving home, and my son, my youngest, was in the car, and we're listening to this, and I'm like, I haven't listened to this album in probably 20 years. I could still sing along almost every single word. It's one of those albums that's that ingrained. And it was the same for me. It was Rage for Order. Rage for Order was the first Queensryche album that I happened to find the CD in a bargain bin at, I don't remember which music store it was, but I found it there, started spinning that thing. And that is, just like you said, even though it's not their best, though I think it is one of their best, it is absolutely hands down my favorite Queensryche album. And they're actually coming to the Shoshone-Bannock Fort Hall Casino to play in December. I saw them there a number of years ago, and it was a good show. A lot of energy. It was a decent venue, not too big, not too small. And so I'm like, maybe I'll go see Queensryche in a couple months.
This is the Jeff Tate-less Queensryche,
oh, yes.
correct?
Well, because the other is no longer called Queensryche. They gave up.
That's Jeff right. Tate. Isn't it called Operation Mindcrime?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And it was a shame in listening to these old Queensryche albums because Jeff Tate has such a good, unmistakable, kind of unique voice that it just pains me a little bit to know that he's a complete asshat. But hey, Todd Vitor, the new lead singer, has an absolutely incredible set of pipes. And again, having seen them live with him, he's a really great frontman. Very dynamic, very exciting, very engaging with the crowd. Really came across to me the time I saw them as just grateful for this opportunity that he had and that people were there getting excited at the music. And, some people give off that vibe. Some people don't. I mean, look, bless their hearts. My favorite band ever, Neurosis, live, did not interact with the crowd at all. Not a single word. They got up there, they played their music, and it works for them because the music of Neurosis is abrasively meditative, I would say. Mm-hmm. And so it made sense that they were just up there kind of deep in the music. But, I love it when like Chuck Billy, the lead singer of Testament, who I think I've seen 3, maybe 4 times now, very, very engaged with the crowd. And, when I saw them on the Slayer farewell tour, they got this little, probably 8-year-old kid who had a mohawk. Chuck Billy gets him up on stage and has him singing along and Steve DiGiorgio, the bass player, is giving him picks for the kid to throw out in the crowds, and Chuck Billy's giving him his sweatbands from his wrist, and that kind of stuff is fun. And Todd Latour definitely seemed much more in that I'm here to entertain you, but at the same time, I love that you guys are here. And so it's fun. It was a good show, and so I think I'm going to go again.
Well, that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised at all that Neurosis doesn't do that shit.
Yeah.
That's the least surprising thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I'm trying to decide if I can. So here's the thing. Godspeed You Black Emperor is coming to the Englert here in Iowa City.
Ooh.
And gun to my head, Godspeed You Black Emperor is one of my 3 favorite bands.
I remember that. You have mentioned that before.
But how's that going to work live? I feel like their music works because of the way that it's constructed for the in the audio file. So I don't know how it's going to work live, and the tickets are pretty expensive. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to decide. And Cassie was like, "Sure, I'll go." In the dutiful wife way, not in the I'm excited to also go see this artist way. So then you're like, "Well, I don't want to go by myself."
Yeah.
But I also don't know if I want to drag her to a show she's not really going to like, especially not if tickets are $95 each.
Boy.
So, yeah. So I'm trying to decide if I'm going to even go. But I bet they also put on a show like Neurosis. I bet they walk out on stage, do some real weird shit for an hour and a half, and then disappear.
Yeah.
Like ravens into the night.
I can believe that.
It's the kind of music they make.
Yep.
Anyway, should we talk about a movie?
Let's talk about a movie. This week, we have made it all the way to 2013's The Wolverine, which in some ways feels like it was made, at least in part, as a reaction to the truly horrible movie that we previously watched, X-Men Origins Wolverine. What did you think about The Wolverine? Of note, and I did not realize this at the time, directed by James Mangold, who would later direct Logan.
Yes.
What were your thoughts?
I felt like this movie was aggressively mid. There were some points that I was like, oh, that's really cool. And a lot of it where I was like, oh, that's really Orientalist and pretty gross. I felt like it was pretty mid. A lot better than X-Men Origins Wolverine. But the bar was literally in hell, so it was not hard for this to leap it with ease. But yeah, it was worse than I remembered, but not as bad as I feared. How about you?
Interesting. I think I was the exact opposite. I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected I was going to. Thought that in the end it was better than I remembered it being. And even though in my memory I remember thinking, I liked most of it until it got to the big punchy at the end, I found the punchy at the end, while still kind of stupid, to be less obnoxious than I remembered it being when I had previously watched the movie. And so for me, while I agree, definitely sort of a mid-tier movie, I actually think overall, while it's probably not a better movie, I enjoyed The Wolverine more than I enjoyed First Class.
Oh, yeah. Oh, me too. Don't get it twisted. I think we're probably at about the same spot in terms of our feeling for this film, but you were just coming from below and I was coming from above. But no, this is solidly number 3 in the ranking.
Absolutely.
At this point.
I'm like X-Men and X-Men and X2 are kind of right there, back and forth for me, which one, depending on the day, I think I like better. And then, so far, this is the third in terms of my overall rank.
Solid third.
Comfortably. Yes. Comfortably.
A few steps above First Class.
Yeah. Which surprised me. And
because there was just here's the thing. I don't love James Mangold, but I like James Mangold. I think he made some good movies. 3:10 to Yuma is a hell of a Western. If you have never seen 3:10 to Yuma, you should watch it. It is one of the, there was a weird renaissance of Westerns in the mid to late aughts, and it's one of those that works really, really well. 3:10 to Yuma is really good. Assassination of, I can't remember. It's got a ridiculous title. The Assassination of Someone by the Coward Someone Else. I can't remember the name of the movie. Also really good. Not good enough for me to remember it, but that's because it's a harder name to remember than 3:10 to Yuma. There was a couple of those really good, mid-aughts Westerns, and his was very good. And the thing about this movie is there were just shots that worked from a cinematic perspective that I felt like I have not seen in an X-Men movie since X2. There was care to the way that things were shown, to lighting, to staging, to ways that cameras would move through scenes, and it felt so much more intentionally created rather than built by committee, which is what kind of the last 3 sort of felt like.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that, you bring up an interesting point. It's probably that I was coming into this with really, really low expectations. And so it surpassed those. And I think that's why I ended up going, I enjoyed that a lot more than I thought I was going to.
I have to put on the record, the name of the title of the film from Andrew Dominic is The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford. Very good film. That and 3:10 to Yuma are good Westerns if you want to be I'd like to watch Westerns but not watch terrible racist John Wayne in a Western. Here's 2 of them.
There you go. Well, let's
go to hell, John Wayne. I mean, you're already dead, so you're already there, so problem solved.
There you go. Well, let's go. I'm going to give a real quick sort of plot summary, and then let's just get into what we thought, what worked, what didn't work, and kind of talk about the movie. So, it starts out in World War II. Logan is in some sort of underground. At first, I thought that he was sneaking into this military base sort of, or camp at least, and then I realized, oh no, he's a prisoner there. And in come a couple B-52s, and I knew what was going to happen. It took my son a little bit to figure that out, but that's okay. He's 13. So
he's just a little guy.
So they're near Nagasaki. The bomb drops as this one Japanese soldier is running around with his sword, and he's knocking off the locks of where they had prisoners of war, setting them free. Some of the other soldiers all kneel down facing where the bomb is going down and, commit suicide. And just as this other officer, Yashida, is getting ready to do the same, Logan has gotten out of the prison thing that he was in and gets the guy down in the bottom, drops on top of him just as the blast comes, and he sort of shields Yashida's body with his own. Yashida then looks up and sees that Wolverine is basically completely fried, and then sees him heal. And then we fast forward to the present day. And Logan is, he's now gotten a lot of his memories back. He's living as a hermit in the Yukon. He's having these bad dreams with Jean Grey in them. He, roughs up a couple dudes who basically shot a bear with a poison arrow, but didn't do the job right, that he'd had to kill. And so he's kind of just being a grumpy old badass in the Yukon. And Yukio, this mutant who's able to foresee people's death, shows up, and says that Yashida is dying from cancer and wants to say goodbye to Logan. So Logan and Yukio go to Japan, and there he meets the son and the granddaughter of Yashida. And Yashida kind of says, and this is something we'll talk about, but he's like, look, I can give you what you always wanted, which is to die, to be able to die. Just, I've figured out a way to transfer your healing ability to me. I don't want to die. I want to live forever. Give me your healing ability. And then you can have a normal life and you can die whenever you want. And I can live forever. Logan's like, trust me, this is not what you want. This is not the right thing for you. Yashida's got this creepy Dr. Green, who is his oncologist. And she does a little something funny to Logan, but he dismisses it as a dream. The next morning, we find out that Yashida has died. There is a funeral. Yakuza gangsters try and kidnap Yashida's granddaughter, Mariko. Logan helps her escape, but in the meantime, he's getting blasted a little bit and kind of beat up here, and he's not shrugging it off like we would expect Logan to normally shrug things off. They eventually go on a bullet train. There's a fight on the train. They get to a hotel. Logan is again getting pretty beat up, rough here, when Logan and Mariko eventually make it to her house in Nagasaki. They fall in love. Yukio has a vision of Logan dying and goes out to Nagasaki to warn him. Mariko is captured by the Yakuza. Logan and Yukio are able to figure out kind of a little bit what's going on. They meet up with Mariko's fiance, Noboru, who was kind of a scumbag. He's in conspiracy with Mariko's father to have the Yakuza kidnap her because Yashida left the control of his vast technological empire to Mariko and not her father. So then we get to kind of Mariko is taken back to where her dad is, and all of a sudden a bunch of ninjas attack her dad, take her away. Logan and Yukio arrive later, and Logan is able to figure out that he's not healing because some weird little spider insect bot looking thing had been placed in him by Dr. Green. He manages to reach into his, cut himself open, reach into his own chest cavity and pull it out, which shortly kills him. And then, of course, now that the suppressing thing is gone, his healing factor kicks in and he is back alive. They then go to the village of Yashida's birth. Harada, which is the ninja dude, he's there. There's a ton of ninjas. There's a big fight. Eventually, Logan makes it to the stronghold built into the mountainside. There's Dr. Green. Turns out she's the Viper, and she's like poisoning people and peeling off her skin, but then still looking kind of the same after she peels off her skin, except now she doesn't have any hair. That part didn't make sense to me. It seems superfluous. And then we find out that Yashida's not dead. He's in the Silver Samurai, a great big adamantium robot. Fight. He has adamantium swords that are hot, so he can cut through Logan's claws, cuts out his claws, and then is like drilling into his claws. I'm assuming what's supposed to be like into the marrow of his bones to suck out the healing factor into himself. We see Yashida get young. Logan starts to look pretty rough. And then all of a sudden, Mariko, who previously has shown that she is quite adept at throwing knives, has picked up the claws of Logan that were cut off higher up in the stronghold and throws them into her grandfather's head, thus killing him. And somehow now Logan gets his healing factor back. His bone claws grow because his metal claws, the adamantium ones, have been cut off. Bone claws grow. He kills Yashida with that. And then he has a final hallucination of Jean, where we then see that Mariko has become the CEO of Yashida Industries and Logan leaves Japan. Then we do have a mid-credit scene. Logan is in the U.S. It's a couple years later in the airport, and boom, there's Magneto, our good friend Eric, and Charles Xavier messing with large groups of people's minds and freezing them yet again, proving that he is a dirtbag. And they warn him of weapons that will bring the end of the mutant race. Boom, movie ends. Direct setup for Days of Future Past.
And that's it.
And that's it.
That's the whole movie.
That's the whole movie. So, what did you think, other than, what you already said? What were some of the things that you liked? What didn't you like? What were some of the more specific things that stood out to you for good or ill in this movie?
So like I said, the big thing I liked about this movie is that Mangold knows how to make a shot work, which is something that like Matthew Vaughn can sort of do pretty okay, and he gets better at it. But First Class was not very good, and clearly Last Stand and X-Men Origins, they could not do a good shot if their life depended on it.
No, they could not.
But this has a lot of really striking shots, and some really interesting fight scenes. I think that having Wolverine lose his healing ability or have it be lessened by the weird creature attached to his chest is interesting.
Yeah.
It adds a vulnerability to him that is literally what the entire movie Logan is about. Spoilers if you haven't seen. I mean, you already saw the trailer, so you know what Logan is about. It's got the song "Hurt" by Johnny Cash in it. What do you think this movie's gonna be about? But anyway, I thought that level of vulnerability was good, and there were just some really striking shots, and I really enjoyed many of those things. As I did mention earlier, the Orientalism is off the charts, guys. Like, first off, do we like samurai or not? Secondly, if you like samurai, why are you working with ninja? Do you know anything about samurai and ninja? I'm not even a weeb who cares about this stuff, but I know enough to know that, like, hey, no, you can't say that the ninjas are honorable, like, what are you talking about? And neither are this. What? There were so many lines like that I was like, this was written by the whitest person who ever lived and then put into the mouth of these Japanese actors, and they did it with a straight face, and I am so impressed because they should be going, oh my God, what are you doing to my history right now? But they say it with a straight face because sometimes you just want a paycheck.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Orientalism is just off the charts. But
and I'm going to say
also
something
the
briefly
comics that
about
it were based on were that way.
Yeah, and that was one thing. Is this is kind of one of those stories where, again, I haven't read a ton of X-Men, and but I read enough. Again, the seminal X-Men comic for me is this one X-Men Annual from probably the late 80s, where some weird dude comes and gets them all and transports them to some citadel, and everybody gets...
You mean the one that's in my basement right now?
Probably.
X-Men Annual 11?
I love that comic. I read it so many times. And I remember in there that Logan gets... the guy who I don't remember who he is, basically is trying to trap Logan in this memory like he's doing with all the other X-Men, or not really a memory, but this, again, here's what you want. And the first thing that Logan goes to, I think it's the first thing, is Japan. And I think it's supposed to be Mariko. I don't remember. The name sounded like it.
Yep. Mariko is there.
And so, so I remember that I was like, okay, this is a part of Logan. This is some story that they have told in the past. So,
yeah.
But what I was going to say is, interestingly, you mention all these things, and I go, oh yeah, that was there. I just didn't even pay attention to any of that stuff. Like, it just went right past me, rolled right over me, because I was just like, I don't know, whatever. Again, I think I was kind of watching this in a like my brain is half turned off sort of stage, which is probably why I liked it as much as I did, because as with many of these movies,
it's a brain turn off kind of movie.
That's the best way to enjoy it, is to turn your brain off. And so there were a lot of those things. You mentioning it now makes me go, oh yeah, I don't even remember some of those things being said in the movie until you brought it back up.
Yeah. And like, I understand what it's based on. It's based on the 1982 miniseries Wolverine, which, I feel the same way about it that I do about this movie. It is Claremont at his most Claremont, for good or for ill, and Frank Miller before he got really bad at art. It was back when Frank Miller was pretty okay at art still. Because it was 1982. It was forever ago. And I mean, it's before I was born. But like it really has its moments where it really shines, even though as you're reading it, you're like, this is the stupidest thing. Like, oh, he's a Ronin because he doesn't have a master because they just came back from the Savage Lands. And so now Wolverine's mad and falls in love with Mariko. I will say, in the comics, Mariko is specifically, and her family are specifically Yakuza. So the idea of the Yakuza being mad at them is more turf wars in the comic than it is like weird corporate intrigue stuff.
Gotcha.
But a lot of it is still just lifted straight out of that. And it largely works. It's fun. If you've still got your Marvel Unlimited, it's 4 issues. You crank that out in a night. It's like 80 pages long.
Yeah.
But yeah, I too also remember that X-Men Annual 11, where you see both Mariko. He goes to Mariko's grave in that comic because he realizes Mariko's dead, so he imagines Mariko's grave, and Storm hangs out with her girlfriend Yukio, who they weren't allowed to be. They weren't allowed to be canon girlfriends because Jim Shooter is a homophobic prick. But they were subtextually the most girlfriend. So, you know, Storm has some adventures with Yukio running around Japan in that weird dream world they go to.
Yes. I need to read that again, if for no other reason than because it was such a... I probably read that comic as a young person more than almost any other comic. I didn't have a lot, but I read that one an awful lot.
It slaps. It's great. Everyone's in there. Everyone's in there. Havoc's there. Longshot's there with his weird 3 fingers. Psylocke's there. Captain Britain's there because he's Psylocke's brother.
Yeah.
It's a great comic.
I remember loving it. So, well, what else worked or didn't work for you?
Some other things that worked. I thought that this movie, in a lot of ways, is a dry run for what they're going to do in 4 years and do better.
Oh yeah, very much so.
And I think that a lot of that will come from focusing on the best parts of this. Wolverine as protector, as violent protector, but as like ultimately that is why the claws come out, is to protect other people. It is not for any other reason anymore. Which again is who he becomes, and is what makes Logan work, is that, you know, he has to do this last final thing basically. So I'm really excited to watch. I'm more excited after watching this to watch Logan again. Yeah, I will say, however, as I was reading the Wikipedia page, I discovered that originally Darren Aronofsky was contracted to direct this film.
Yes. I remember the buzz on the internet about that many years ago.
Can you imagine an Aronofsky Wolverine movie? I want that in my eyeballs so bad. But that's fine. It's because I understand why they got Aronofsky, at least initially, because he and Hugh Jackman became friends on the set of The Fountain, which great movie if you haven't seen it. Weird as hell, but looks like a bajillion bucks. It's such a cool looking movie. And so you watch something like The Fountain and you're like, yeah, man, I can see why Jackman was like, yeah, you come make my next Wolverine movie because the last one sucked. And I wish that he had, even though, like I say, I think Mangold does good work here. I think he does. He elevates the state of where the X-Men had been since X2 in a lot of really wonderful ways. Aronofsky just would have done such a weirder thing with it.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have seen it.
Yep. It would have been interesting. That's for sure.
I also thought another thing I thought was really interesting, and a thing that I think again is going to be improved in Logan. This movie wanted to be R-rated so badly, but knew that it couldn't be, because there are so many action scenes that you're like, oh, that was a cooler scene, and then you had to cut it down to get that PG-13. Oh, that was a better scene, but then you had to cut it down to get that PG-13. And apparently there was like a longer uncut version of it, but I watched whatever was on HBO Max. And I'm sure that was the theatrical cut.
So here's the question for you. Here's what will answer that question for you, because I am fairly certain I did not watch the original version, because I was sitting there watching it with my 13-year-old, and by the third time Logan had dropped the F-bomb, I thought to myself, pretty sure this isn't PG-13 anymore. Oh, yes. There are 3 times.
Oh, no, there was one.
Nope.
There was one in the version that I watched on HBO Max yesterday, and it was when he first got to the town in the north.
Yes, that was the first one. And then the version I watched, there were 2 more. I don't remember the second. The third and final one is he and Harada are talking as he's trying to approach the stronghold in that final town that they're at, right? And Logan just says F you.
That's the only one. That's the only one that was in mine, is when he's talking to Harada and he just says "go F yourself" and then like drop kicks him.
Oh yes, no. There are 2 other times where he says effing. It's something.
You apparently watched a better version of the movie than I did. So maybe that's why you liked it better.
What I will also tell you is there were flying gobbets of blood as Wolverine is
I got none of that.
As Wolverine is like slashing guys and spinning them through the air with his claws, there are flying gobbets of blood across the screen. And I was like, I'm pretty sure, even though when I fired it up and turned it on, it said at the top on the big iTunes page, because I had bought this movie a while ago, so I must have bought the special version. It still said it was PG-13, so that's why I'm like, it's fine. My son can watch it with me. And then I was like, okay.
Maybe I shouldn't let my son watch this one.
Like, well, at least I already know he's not going to be watching Logan. I might have goofed up a little bit with this one, but hey, whatever. He's a mature 13-year-old. Don't let anybody know that I'm mature. But no, really, yeah. This I'm fairly certain, because I remember watching it going, okay, yeah, I can see where they're going with this, because this is very much proto Logan in 2017, because not as violent and not nearly as much blood, but I'm like, there is plenty of blood in this. And like, again, splashes
there was
of it
next
going
to none.
across as he's hacking and slashing at people.
Yeah, there was next to none in the version I watched on HBO Max. The only blood was blood on his body when he was like, I've been stabbed or shot. Like, there was never flying blood. And like those fight scenes were largely bloodless. So that's really interesting to see the differences between the 2 versions.
Yeah, that really is. And I was actually going to ask you about that and see if you knew which version you had seen. Because again, like I say, once we got to the third F-bomb, I'm like, okay, this is clearly not the PG-13 version that was released in theaters.
Yeah.
But
well, that's interesting. I bet your version it was also 2 hours or 12 minutes longer. So I don't know about 12 minutes longer I needed to watch it. But I would have been interested to see something, to see the other version of it. Cuz I just noticed that there was a lot of really kinetic, frenetic, exciting action scenes, but they were so bloodless, and I was like, this was how they convinced them to and it was probably a combination of it being like, this did okay, but I bet that the unedited version, the uncut version, extended cut, I bet it did well on home video. And so that's when they were like, okay, you can make the violent movie you want to make.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. And I almost wonder, because I'm pretty sure the first time I saw it, I probably saw the theatrical cut as well, which makes me wonder if that's why I enjoyed it more, because what they added was actually meaningful to some degree.
Could be. Some other thoughts that I had, Viper was bad.
Yep.
Actress was bad. Sorry.
Viper is bad.
Also, it's a shame that they couldn't make her, I mean, this is Madam Hydra. But because of weird rights stuff, they're like, we can use this character, but we can't use her title.
I had
of
no
Madam
idea.
Hydra. Literally the leader of Hydra in the 70s and 80s, created by Jim Steranko in his weird Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. comic, which is one of the all-timers if you want to read like a Silver Age Marvel comic. Steranko's Nick Fury run is just great. So I was happy to see Viper, if only that they needed to cut Jim Steranko a check, which always cut your art creators a check. But it was funny to me that Madam Hydra was here, but she was lame.
Yeah, she just didn't work for me. And I think I wrote that down a couple of times, that it just, a lot of it felt out of place.
Well, and there was just stuff like, did you need to give her a long forked tongue?
Right.
Or did she need to do the weird peely skin part? Because like you said, that seemed utterly unnecessary.
Yeah. I kept waiting for her to look
be
like a lizard or a snake or something afterwards. And then literally all that happens is now she's bald.
Yeah. They should have kept her looking like a snake through the rest of the movie. That would have been better.
Yeah. It just, it was weird.
I thought that Mariko and Logan had good chemistry.
I did too.
I thought that the actors had really good chemistry. Always love to see Rila Fukushima, whatever I see her in, even though those bangs do not do her face shape any favors.
No, they really make it look
because she
weird.
always looks. She has such a triangular shaped face. Those bangs did not help. She looks a lot better when she has her bangs grown out as a human. But I really like Rila Fukushima a lot. I know that apparently Yukio is also in Deadpool 2, but it's not this Yukio. It's a different Yukio, but it's still Yukio. Huh. But I haven't seen Deadpool 2.
I haven't either.
Apparently she's Negasonic Teenage Warhead's girlfriend. So love when they finally make the subtextual lesbian a textual lesbian. Love that. Love that representation for us. Yeah, I thought that the Silver Samurai suit looked stupid, but like you said, I thought it was kind of a fun fight scene.
Yeah.
More fun than I thought it was going to be.
It was, again, in my head, I was equating Logan very much to the first Wonder Woman movie, in that some, kind of really cool things building up to just a really atrocious CGI punch fest at the end. And while I don't think that the first 2/3, 3/4 of Logan are quite as good as I don't like them quite as much as I like that first, probably 2/3 of Wonder Woman. I thought that the finale of Logan was way, way better than the finale of Wonder Woman. And so that was another
Wonder
one of those,
Woman fumbles the bag so badly.
It really does.
That's not hard to do at all. That's a movie that, like, the first 3/4 of it, you're like, this is one of the best superhero movies I've ever seen. And then the last part, you're just like, garbage. This movie sucks.
And then they made Wonder Woman 84, which just the whole movie kind of sucked. So
I haven't even seen it because
oh my gosh,
I heard it wasn't very good.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
It looked
and it's
bad.
So problematic. Oh, it's so problematic. The more you think about what she is doing to Chris Pine, well, really not Chris Pine, but the guy whose body Chris Pine is inhabiting, it gets really...
Is that what happens? Does she like body swap steal him?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. I don't remember all exactly I know is that Maxwell Lord...
happened. All I know is that at the end, Chris Pine's character is now really gone, and she happens to run into the guy who Chris Pine had been inhabiting his body, and you're like, you just had a lot of kind of rapey, non-consensual sex with this dude's body because you were envisioning you somehow managed to transport this other dude's brain in there. And now you're just like smiling at him and making a pass, and he's supposed to be okay with you. That's wrong.
Ooh, I don't like that. I don't like that.
It's one of those things where you look at it and you're like, oh, I see. You're trying to do the whole, oh, isn't this cute? You had a relationship with him when it was somebody else's brain in his body, and now you're going to connect with him. And oh, that's just sweet and romantic. And you go, did you think about this for a second? Because it's not. It's rapey and it's creepy.
I reject that. So I guess I will never see Wonder Woman 84. That's fine.
It's bad.
I don't care.
It's bad. Anyway, getting back to the Wolverine, here's a couple things for me. You've talked about some of the things I really like. I thought that the train fight was actually pretty decent. I really like I really like Logan and whoever he's fighting at the time trying to either figure out, do I duck? Do I jump over these things really fast? Or again, can I fake somebody out so that the other person jumps when they get, like, that was great. I loved that.
That was fun.
When he
that was really fun.
fakes like he's going to jump, so the other guy who's facing backwards thinks he needs to jump, and he jumps up right into a crossbar and gets smacked. That part was cool. The final fight, taking Viper out of the equation would make that final fight actually quite a bit better.
I agree.
Because just nothing about her character worked in this movie for me. I really liked the beginning. I thought that I like these historical kind of flashbacks that we sometimes get when you look at, World War II with Magneto, / Eric. Those ones are cool. I didn't think that the ones at the beginning of Origins worked because nothing in that movie works. That movie is garbage from start to finish. But I liked this idea.
See, I hated the start of this movie.
Really?
Oh, yeah. My first note is just ... Are you effing kidding me? And I did not write effing. I wrote the word, dear listener. And then this is so offensive because really you're going to put... We haven't done enough to make Wolverine important. We got to put him at the scene of the drop of the second nuclear bomb, guys. Like, really?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that you liked it. I thought to myself, are you effing kidding me?
I think the reason I liked it is because in my head, I was just erasing all of the historical, Logan has been involved in every war since he was born. Garbage from X-Men Origins Wolverine. And so I was looking at this going, okay, I like this is a cool introduction to the character and the fact that he's kind of been around for a long time. But I can also see why you'd be like, really? Come on. Question for you. And this is one of the things in here that I personally didn't feel was earned. So tell me if there's something that I missed. I believe with the bad dreams he's having where Jean is like, come and join me. We're supposed to get this idea that Logan, for some reason, wishes he could be there. It doesn't ever work for me again because the relationship between Jean Grey and Logan in none of these movies has worked for me. And it doesn't work for me here either. But
Indeed it does not.
I think that's supposed to be the thing that makes us sympathize with Logan and go, oh yeah, he probably does want to finally die. But it just didn't work for me. When Yashida's like, I want to give you what you've always wanted. I'm kind of sitting here going, well, where have we seen that what Logan wants is to die? Like, I just didn't feel like that is a thing that has been portrayed in his character at any point. And then all of a sudden it's the central crux of this story and this guy's argument to say, let me take your healing ability because I know what you really want more than anything else is to die. And we get that quote from Yukio where, she's picking Logan up and she says that she's here to offer him what he most wants, an honorable death, an end to your pain. And I'm kind of going, I mean, we know that Logan's had it rough. We see that he's been put through a lot and stuff, but I just didn't ever feel that what he really was missing was being able to die. Did I miss something? Or did you feel like that wasn't earned either?
No, I 100% agree with you. I wrote in my notes, the Jean stuff is forced and unearned. Was it delightful to see Famke Janssen again? Yes. Was she still creepy in every scene she was in? Yes. Is she incapable of not playing Jean Grey as a creeper? I maybe think that that's the case.
Which was why
she just seems creepy.
The only scene with her in it that really worked for me was the last one where she was being super creepy. And so I had written previously, I said the Jean thing still doesn't work for me. And then I went back up and I was like, except when it's supposed to be creepy. And so the last one worked because that was supposed to be creepy. But the rest of them, I just don't buy it.
Also, like you said, it's just, how long did you know this woman?
Exactly.
How much time? It seems to me that by the end of that movie, you've maybe spent more time and had more sex with Mariko than you ever did with Jean Grey. So maybe you need to get over your old crush and be with the hot Japanese CEO who wants to be with you literally right now and says, don't leave. And you're like, I gotta leave. Dog, Be a house husband, my guy.
Right?
Living the dream.
Yeah.
Oh, do you know what I've always wished for? An easy life where I never have to think about money again. Woohoo! Problem solved. Be the house husband to the hot Japanese CEO. Come on, dude.
Yeah, just the gene stuff never works for me. And again, I felt like they were trying to use that as the impetus for this whole idea that he wants to die. Because again, that's every dream he has with her is she's like, oh, come join me.
You need to die already.
To. And yeah, it just, and I think it's because I just have found that relationship from the start to just not be believable, that it doesn't work in the ways it is supposed to work in this movie. And so I'm really glad, if I remember correctly, that there's absolutely none of that in Logan.
Yeah, I don't remember there being any either. So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, because we don't need any more of that. We've already had too much.
Agreed. Let's see. Another thing I wrote in my notes that I wanted to bring up. I think it's very funny when Wolverine goes and finds Mariko's fiance, and he is like partying with some sex workers, and he is so incensed that he would cheat on his fiance. Dog, you literally just boned her earlier in the movie.
I thought the exact same thing. I'm like, hold on. I'm like, you're saying to him what you literally just did to his fiance.
Mad? How can you be mad that he's stooping sex workers when you're stooping his fiance? My guy, you have no moral ground to stand on here. Did he seem like a scumbag? Yes. Was it funny when he threw him out of a window and then he didn't die because there happened to be a pool there? And then Yukio's like, dog, did you know about that? And he's like, no, I just was going to kill him. It's fine. That was good. But I did think that it was a very funny, hypocritical moment on Wolverine's part.
Yep. Agree 100%.
But yeah, final thoughts. Pretty good. Aggressively mid in terms of like all movies that I watch, but not aggressively mid in terms of X-Men movies.
Surprisingly,
when I said at the beginning aggressively mid, I'm talking about in terms of all of the films that I watch in my life. And I watch some real bangers, folks. I like some good cinema in my life. No, it's surprisingly good for an X-Men film. Solid third. Solid number 3.
Yep. I agree completely. I did not think that this would at this point sit in that third spot, and was quite surprised when it managed to make me enjoy it as much as it did. I thought that the quiet moments of this are when this movie really shines. Like you said, I like those quieter, more introspective moments with Logan and with whether it's Yukio or Mariko. Like those are the best moments of this movie for me, and managed to be, I think, elevate some of the slightly messier parts of this movie that surround those quiet moments. And so I think that's where it ends up being better than I thought it was going to be. And in some ways, maybe better than it deserves to be, because the real crux of the story is kind of stupid. You know, Japanese dude who Logan saved his life, and now he wants to steal Logan's healing power. And he's got some creepy doctor who I don't know, forked tongue, long tongue, can breathe poison, but is immune to... none of that made sense. But anyway, I thought it was... I enjoyed it. The time went by much, much faster than when I was watching First Class. I did not ever feel the need to turn it off halfway through and go to bed. And so that alone made me go,
I sat down. I sat down. I watched it. I was annoyed by HBO Max's compression because it's not very good. Of all the streaming services to have a slightly lower bandwidth and have to watch, HBO Max is the worst one. It gets sketchy sometimes, but what are you going to do when you live in a place where there's no good internet? Thanks, the middle of the country. But it was good. I enjoyed it. And then I watched Andor and I was wrecked.
Well, I will definitely have to watch that and get on that relatively soon so we can have our spoiler cast for Andor. But until then, you know, we're continuing. We only have a few more movies because I think that, I think there's a few that are associated with the X-Men, but I really just don't think we need to, I don't think we need to pull, at least at this time, Deadpool and the New Mutants and those in. So I'm really thinking we've basically got 4 more movies to watch. We've got Days of Future Past, we got Apocalypse, we got Logan, and we got Dark Phoenix. And
okay. All
so,
right.
just 4 more of these to get through, and then we can move on to other things.
Sounds good.
But
I'm excited. Again, I have never seen Days of Future Past, listeners. I am expecting the worst. Even though I know lots of people say it's maybe the best one, people have lied to me before about the film.
and they will lie to you
People
again.
have said things are good that are not good. So I am going in with extremely low expectations for this film in the hopes that maybe it'll turn out good.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I don't think that that's a bad way to go.
I'm annoyed that Wolverine is the one who gets sent back in time because I've read a comic and it's supposed to be Kitty Pryde, suckers.
I'm not going to spoil it, but I do think at the very least they come up with a sort of reasonable explanation as to why it is Logan.
Okay.
So while I am sure that it is because
it's probably because of his mutant powers,
recognizes that Hugh Jackman is really the biggest star and the main reason probably most people were coming back to see some of these movies. They felt the need to make his role much more front and center. They at least give an explanation for it.
It's probably because of his healing factor, isn't it? Don't tell me, but I bet it's going to be because he has healing factor. So they're like, he can go back in time because his body will just survive it for some reason.
No, I'm going to tell you that that's not it.
Oh, okay.
It is related to his healing factor in a way, but that's not what it is. And I'll leave it at that.
All right. So, well, we'll see where we're at in 4 weeks, because in 2 weeks, dear listeners, I have a surprise for both you and Peter.
Yes, they will not tell me what it is, so I don't know what it is. I'm going to have to come in blind, and I'm slightly annoyed because I want to know, but I'm also very excited to come in and just have you drop it on me.
I'm really tempted to tell you, but I think we'll have more fun if I don't.
Okay, then let's not. Let's stick to it.
All right, well, we'll see you in 2 weeks, listeners.
We'll be back in 2 weeks. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, rate us on iTunes or wherever you'd like, but iTunes probably gets the most traffic. Feedback at themiddleofculture.com. Great place to let us know if you've got any thoughts, feedback, or anything. Or if you know us in real life, just reach out to us, and we would be happy to share your feedback for everybody else to hear. Until then, we'll talk in a couple weeks.
Bye.